Hi everyone. Hello, happy Friday. I am sitting here in my kitchen. Cheers. I'm drinking a white Umbrian wine called Panata from Argille, which is the wine that we served at our wedding. We love it. It's been a really long time since I've done one of these videos. I think it's been a couple months. As you know, probably I used to do them all the time. And it's been quite a crazy couple of months. I know it's terribly boring when anyone says how busy they've been because everyone is busy, but it's been a ride. So we have had a lot of delays on our project Palazzo, a lot of problems, mostly related to all the corruption in Italy and the stop of payments that the Italian government made. For those of you who don't know, there have been a lot of opportunities for Italians like us, I'm Italian, my husband's Italian, to have credits to help you pay for renovations. But there was so much abuse, sadly, of this possibility, very few controls, that the government shut everything down and said no payments. So everything's been delayed, and we're finding, apart from the delays, we're finding some other ways to go around the situation. So we are going forward with projects in the Palazzo. It's just taking, as with everything in Italy, a little bit longer than planned. Okay, I have a lot to talk about, but there's no time to talk about it all. So we're gonna have to break it up into separate videos. Today I wanted to talk about a topic that is very prominent online, which is wanting to move to Italy. And so this topic is really very complex. It's complex because non-Italians love Italy more than Italians love Italy. Sadly, it is what it is though. Italians who live in Italy understand and have to live with all the complexities that is living in Italy, whereas expats often have resources from other countries, or they're only in Italy for less than 6 months a year, and they don't really have to deal with all of the incredible difficulties that the Italians have to face. So I'm the first one to raise my hand. I'm not an expat, I'm a repat, but I definitely grew up in America, and so I have ties outside of Italy. So for me, things are a little bit easier than for an Italian without a tie outside of Italy, but it's still difficult for us too. So, why move to Italy? Everyone wants to move to Italy because they have this under the Tuscan sun dream of what Italy is. The food, the wine, the beautiful people, the beautiful scenery, the pace of life, right? Anything else I'm missing? I don't think so. Yeah, and those things are largely true. They're largely true, but there are many things that are not taken into account. And I do think that most of the social media that talks about Italy or why to move to Italy or why to come to visit Italy on your vacation gloss over some of the more challenging factors of Italy and living in Italy and being Italian. So let me just start with the practical ones, aside from the super obvious, like you have to learn Italian and you have to choose a place that fits with your budget and, figure out your income and that kind of thing. By the way, learning Italian is really hard. So I'm C2 level Italian, which is the highest level you can go without being native tongue Italian, meaning you learned it as a child from your mother or father. And I still work on improving my Italian, even though I've been speaking Italian since I was a teenager. So it's really hard. And I would say there's a massive amount of people who speak a basic level of Italian, like B1. It goes B1, B2, C1, C2, and that's it. So there's a lot of room in there for some differences. Anyway, it's really hard and it's really complex. And I hear people say all the time, oh, well, I understand like 60% of what was said, or I'm basically fluent now. And I'm thinking to myself, like, you just don't even know what you're not understanding. So that's the tricky thing. Like, the language is super tricky. And I'm going to get to that because it is related to one of 4 of the topics that I think people don't always consider when they think about moving to Italy. Okay, so what are those 4 topics? Number 1, taxes. Number 2, healthcare. Number 3, socialization. And number 4, driver's license. Okay, so healthcare. There's a myth that Italian healthcare is free, it's public, it's socialized, it's wonderful. It's not. It's really difficult, it's complicated, it's delayed. You can't just get anything for free. Most people pay privately to get services because they don't want to have to wait for months and months and months for a mammogram, an MRI, what have you. So I can go into depth on that on another call, but healthcare is not the socialized medicine paradise that people might think it is in Italy anyway. It may exist in some smaller countries such as Norway, etc. Okay, so healthcare, there are a lot of ways people get around it. They pay privately or they get private insurance, they use private clinics. And I'm not talking about rich people, I'm talking about everybody in Italy at some point uses some level of private care. So that's something to dig into if you're really thinking about moving to Italy. The other thing about healthcare is the facilities are usually not what you would expect if you're coming from a country from the United States, like the United States. So the facilities are often shockingly, what is the word? Run down, shockingly run down, where you think, oh my God, where am I right now? The care is actually quite good because these doctors who are working in the public facilities are actually the same doctors who are working in the private facilities. It's just the facilities themselves, which are public, which are kind of run down. So I just don't want anyone to be surprised at that, and I think it's really important to look into. Someone asked me the other day, well, maybe it's just, Ellen, that you don't live in a big city. No, we're actually better off not being in a big city, because in a big city in Italy anyway, it's even more chaotic because it's compounded. The chaos is compounded. And so there's even more delays and more confusion. And so it's not easy. And most Italians, again, use some level of private care when needed. Okay, so healthcare is a common misconception. Another thing to look out for is taxes. Italy is one of the highest taxed countries in the world. I think it's number 4 on the list it's in the top 4. It's not the first, but it's like 2, 3, or 4. And so if you stay in Italy as a resident, or if your name is on the list of residents, even if you're not in Italy for 6 months a year, if you are a resident and you're not staying in Italy for 6 months a year, you need to take care of that situation because you are liable for taxes. If you spend more than 6 months a year in Italy and or are a resident, you are liable to pay income tax in Italy. And you have to be really careful about this because there are also types of income where the income is treated much differently than in other countries. So for example, royalties, certain types of accounts, certain types of bank accounts are treated much differently in Italy than they are in the United States. So talk to an Italian accountant who's licensed in Italy, who speaks fluent English so that you can understand fully what the situation is. It's tricky. I've seen some people hightail it back to the United States because of the situation. Okay, next up, socialization. So socialization is a big one. You need to think about where you're going to be moving. Are you moving to a big city? Are you moving to a small town? Are you going to be in a villa in the countryside? That's beautiful and wonderful, but how are you going to socialize if you're there for 12 months a year? I've seen people come to Italy and maybe as a couple, it was their dream, and then they split up, and then their social structure and net collapses. So you really want to think about what your social net is. Now there's going to be one of 2 paths for you. You're going to go into the expat path, or you're going to go into the Italian speaking path. So the expat path is going to be, honestly, for most people who move to Italy, because the Italian language skills are going to have to be very high to blend into an Italian social network. You might find, of course, more in the bigger cities, a truly bilingual social net where people speak equally well Italian and English, but it's tricky. And language is like water, it always takes the easiest path. So whatever the easiest path is, if at the table it's easiest just to speak Italian or just to speak English, it's gonna go that way. So it's just something to think long and hard about. Just learning Italian to make friends is not as easy as it sounds. And I just want people to be realistic about that. Okay, so social network. And the expat route is fine. Like I didn't choose that route because I'm Italian, I always spoke Italian. I chose the Italian network, but the expat route is fine for social network. It's just good to be aware and realistic. The other thing about socialization, which ties into our last topic for today, which is driver's license, is if you plan on being in Italy for more than 6 months a year, therefore you will be treated as a resident fiscally, you also need to get an Italian driver's license, because in Italy, once you've had at least 1 year of residency, you are no longer legally permitted to drive on a foreign driver's license. You have to get an Italian driver's license, which is really hard. If you saw any of my videos a couple of years ago, I studied for the test. I was an insane person for a couple of months. Fortunately, I took it one time. I passed right away. I think I got 2 wrong out of 40, which, let me tell you, was really hard. Obviously all in Italian. I think you might be able to take it in French because of Valle d'Aosta, the region up in the north, but it's either in French or English. And it's really hard. They trick you. And so you have to get an Italian driver's license if you plan on having more than 6 months a year in Italy. Why is this related to socialization? Because if you plan on having the Under the Tuscan Sun dream, you're gonna need to have a car. And you're not gonna be able to have a car unless you have an Italian driver's license. So that's my scoop for today. I know it's not super happy and positive, but I feel like you can find all the happy, positive, easy stuff on social media. I'm giving you the real scoop, the real side of the story. And I'd love to see your comments if you have more questions. Again, happy Friday. Cheers from Italy. Argile Panata wine. And by the way, this rose that's been sitting behind me is an ancient rose from our garden. It's a variety that we don't know when it was planted, at least 75 years ago, but it very likely could have been planted 100 years ago or more, because our garden is ancient. Okay, that's all. Have a great weekend, and we will talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.